our subscribers and friends that live in Europe are going to have an easier time watching this one. And I got to tell you guys, the man on my right, right, the man on my right, he and I have been friends for several years now, but I don't think either of us knew how long we'd both been part of the RPF. And for those of you that don't know what the RPF is, it's the Replica Props Forum. It's for people who just cannot get enough of replicating famous props and accessories from movies. And I've been in the Replica Props Forum for over 20 years. I know you have. And this is my good friend, Jedi Fyfe, aka Brad Fyfe. Brad, it's great to finally talk to you like in real time on an interview style video like this. I wanted to start by asking you, because clearly from just look at the studio behind him, everybody. Like, look at the studio behind him. Clearly, he is a massive movie fan, like so many of us are. And also, his YouTube channel is Jedi Fyfe, Fyfe. So that's all one word, Jedi Fyfe. I'll put a link in the description. I think no, it's already in the description because I'm just that prepared. What was like the movie or movies where you started to have your imagination captured, and what age was that at?
I mean, with everybody, it's Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, with most people. So I was born in 73.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember playing the original Star Wars as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember seeing it in the theater, but obviously I knew I had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was Star Wars and, you know, Empire and Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, it's anything in the 70s and in that mid to late 70s. It was almost impossible not to be captivated by what was on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, you were kind of like the rest of us kids, where you were waiting for the next summer blockbuster throughout the 80s to come out. You'd go see it, and then like Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Batman '89, all those were E.T., E.T., your wheelhouse. Okay. So now this is where we really start to get into the Brad Fyfe quest here, because much in the way that some people start an action figure collection, there's always like that one. But for props people, as you and I both know, there's always that one, the thing that sets you down the path. What was your gateway prop? What was the first prop or costume piece that you could not stop obsessing over that sent you into this rabbit hole?
Well, so this is like a 3-tiered answer.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the first prop that got me into actually realizing you could own props was the Master Replicas Darth Vader lightsaber. So my wife, then girlfriend, bought me that as a birthday present, and I was like blown away that you could actually own something from the movie. Then that kind of got me down, like you said, the rabbit hole of, well, can you buy other things? Can you find them? Then I came up on the RPF, and I realized you can actually make these. You can actually go out and find parts, build them. There's back then there weren't really kits. So with that, one night, it was like 11 o'clock at night. My girlfriend and I were my wife at the time. We're sitting there, and I was like, I had this idea in my head of building the extending back from Back to the Future 2. I was like, oh, well, if you go to Home Depot, they probably have gauged PVC that you could just put together. So I went there at 11:30 at night. I drug her there. We went there. I didn't have any tools. I was living in an apartment here in LA. I had them cut me sections of PVC. I went home, built it in an hour. And then you get in, the third rabbit hole is then you get into, okay, how specific do you need it to be? What are the measurements? Where can you find the information?
Yeah.
So I would say the bat really spurred me onto it, but the one prop that I always wanted that I just could not stop thinking about were the Back to the Future 2 shoes, the Nike Mags.
Yep.
I don't know what it was when I was a kid, like those just they were just magical to me. So couldn't stop thinking about those for a long time, and finally ended up getting a pair of the 2011s.
Is that the Michael J. Fox Foundation ones they sell? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got them. There's a whole story behind how I actually afforded to buy them, which was I bought a production used Staff of Ra headpiece from Raiders of the Lost Ark from the family that made them.
Wow.
And, yeah, the guy was selling them for his grandfather, and put them on eBay. He put one on eBay. I missed it, and he just messaged him, "Hey, do you have another one?" He goes, "Let me ask my grandfather." He did. They sold it to me. I paid like $500 or $600 for it. Had that for a while. Sold it to a collector for $5,000. Like 2 weeks later, a guy was selling the Nike mags here in Marina del Rey for like $4,000. So I took that money and went over and bought the shoes. So otherwise, I would never have spent that much money on any prop.
Yeah, because that's the only way to get the authentic Nike stamped version of that shoe, if I recall, right? Yeah. Are they? I have to assume that for costuming purposes, you wear the universal ones without the Nike logos on them, or
so subsequently in 2016 or 2015, China makes almost near identical versions of them. So I had the real pair and I had the replicas up here. They're 95% accurate. I mean, the materials, the lights, everything. So I actually got the knockoff ones, sold my pair for like $6,000 or $7,000, and and put the money in the bank and bought the replicas.
So, wow, and that means that you can now wear your shoes guilt-free if you want
exactly.
to.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I actually let my son wear them to the last day of school last year, and he tore into them. But I was like, you know what? I mean, it's fine. They still work and everything. So
kids and clothes, right? They just somehow managed to trash them. There's some people in here who are asking. 757 Hustle asks, "What's everyone's grail for a prop?" Now, so I want to couch this question to you a little differently this way. You've got a lot of props in your collection, and you're always acquiring new ones. So, if you had to name your 3 favorite props you have, and then one prop you don't have that you would really like to build or find or whatever as a replica, what would those be?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I would say one is the Nike mags, the replicas. Second, I have to go with Han and Carbonite. And third is probably one of my. I ended up getting a screen used Die Hard Barabond.
Oh,
yeah!
Wow.
So that's probably my third. Yeah.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you split that between? Is it purely budgetary, whether you go for something that's screen used or replicated, or is it just what comes your way?
That, and just knowing that I don't like having really expensive pieces, just because you don't know if someone's going to break in, if your house is going to burn down, and it's insured, but still, I don't like having very expensive pieces, even though this stuff is worth money. It's just, so that's usually I don't really go for a lot of screen use unless it comes up and it's a great deal.
Right.
They just can't pass up. So yeah, and that's how I kind of came upon the Barabond. There was a guy who bought like 50 of them, like 25 years ago, put them on eBay for $99 a piece.
Oh, wow.
And now they're selling for $3,000 at prop store. It's unbelievable. It's just it's time and place.
Yeah. Moon Knight wants to know, what's the most delicate prop in your collection?
Ooh, wow, that's a good question. I would have to say the proton pack, because there's we were kind of discussing this. There are so many little greeblies on there that just can pop off, break, snap.
Yep.
You look at it wrong and something falls off.
Yeah, and especially when you've got it wired up on the inside, any one of those soldered connections can just pull or stretch. Or the proton pack is like a prop replica that you have to maintain like a classic car. Like it's unreal.
Like a DeLorean?
Yeah, like a DeLorean, except the difference is that because you build the proton pack yourself and it wasn't built infamously poorly from the get-go, a proton pack on average is usually better maintained than a DeLorean. It usually is more reliable.
Yeah. I didn't answer the question of like what's a prop I don't own that I would like to own. And it's funny because I'm at a place where I have a lot of things that I just really, really like. I guess it's not the prop that I don't own, but what I need on a prop is I have a out of time license plate, and I have everybody's signature from Back to the Future except Michael J. Fox and Crispin Glover. And seeing the recent video of Michael J. Fox, my heart is crushed. I just don't think he's going to be signing anymore.
Yeah, I saw the footage, and it was like, I'm so glad that he was getting recognition. I'm so glad he was there. I'm so glad Chris Lloyd was there with him and everything like that. But I had the same reaction you did. I was like, oh God, like,
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's unreal because Christopher Lloyd's 20 years older than him, but he now looks 20 years younger. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's no shade on Michael J. Fox. The man has gone through hell. Like he's gone through hell.
Can't do anything about it. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit in this whole props replica game. You've got your priorities, you've got your movies that you love, and you dig deep into each movie that you love. Like you don't just get like Indiana Jones hat or a Jurassic Park raptor claw. You go and you get things like, as you see in the thumbnail, you get the night vision goggles with the lights on them, and you get the amber cane, and you get this, and that. You dig deep with each movie that you're into. At what point do you say that's either too deep or too esoteric, or has there been an example of something where you've gone, yeah, I'm glad they're making a run of those, but I just feel like that's a bridge too far?
Fantastic question. Yeah. And it's funny because I do see people going so far with their collection that they're just getting background pieces that are everyday items. And like, it kind of distracts from the piece. So my thought process has always been kind of with my props is to make it look like a 3D movie poster. So in the old 70s, 80s, movie posters like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you got glimpses of people and places and their costume and props. So I always felt like, having little cubicles that you could put those things that everyone could recognize what it was, but then have a little bit of reality into it. So sometimes I think newspapers and shoes and actually even custom made action figures that are in TV shows or movies bring some sort of reality to us. So it's like a newspaper, everyone knows what a newspaper is. It's, like Back to the Future, it's part 2. It's like such a great plot point. So it's always been kind of like a fine balance of not going too far, but going far enough. With Jurassic Park, I mean, there's, the walkie-talkies is something that's really cool. It was a normal thing or a mainstream made Motorola, I think it is. But then they painted it white and stuff. And it's something I just haven't come across yet.
Right. Yeah. It's like in 1999 where all the Star Wars fans were looking for women's leg razors.
For the Jedi communicator.
Yeah. The reason that I've often found it funny is, I'm sure you've heard me tell this story before, but when I was out in Los Angeles in the early 2000s, I had already been hooked up in college with the indiegear.com community, and a lot of those guys, as you know, live out there and meet up monthly or whatever. And that was the first time, this was 2002, and that was the first time that one of the guys had found the real proper mold of the idol from Raiders, the original idol, because a lot of the ones that were commercially available at that time were actually a little more janky. They weren't quite correct. The frown. Yeah. And he found like the real pull. He got a really nice casting off of it, and he was doing them in actual gold plate. Like he was going to make them, whatever.
This wasn't the Gobler idol, is it?
No, this was from a guy named Michael Key. And he was doing them up, and he was so excited, and he and I, we hung out a lot, and he was a good friend of mine. And one night after one of the indie meetups, he said everybody was talking to him about, because he was getting the run set up, and I hadn't signed on for it. And he said, Michael, he said, you going to sign on for this? I got a few slots left. And everybody's kind of staring at me on the sidewalk. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. They all looked at me and they were like, well, Michael, and they weren't mad. They were my friends, but they were just kind of like, what's the deal? And I went, Indy never ends up with that stuff. He's got his clothes and his gear, and that's really about it. He doesn't end up with anything.
I remember, well, I remember you saying that on one of your podcasts, and I was like, it got me thinking, because I actually have a pull from what is probably from that mold, and it kind of got me thinking. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, $2,000 and a trip to Marrakesh, but he, like you said, he never does it.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, I'm not trying to imply to anybody that who's listening that, oh, it's wrong to get certain props. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is that it hits our brains differently. And like, I totally understand. And the one that I've always been tempted by is when I see those guys do those pitch perfect 1-to-1 Ark of the Covenants. And I'm like, oh.
Philip Weiss, he's a friend. So I've gone down to his shop and he has one. And Philip Weiss makes, he's the owner of rebelscum.com and Official Picks. It's gorgeous in person. It's the size of a couch. It's huge, and you don't think it's that big, but it's like 5.5 feet long.
Yeah.
But no, I know what you're saying. It's all personal because, and like you're not telling people that that's a wrong thing to collect. It's how it hits you.
Right.
Like the Blade Runner blaster. I love that prop. It's beautiful. I'm not a fan of the movie. So I can't. I have one. I just can't get into it. I can't own it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. Like, I've looked at, I have the movie and I appreciate it, but it's not like my favorite film. But I've appreciated that gun for a long time. And I've almost, pardon the pun, I've almost pulled the trigger sometimes on the really higher end versions of that are for sale. And then I'm like, nah, it wouldn't do anything for me.
Yeah. Like you look at it and you go, I spent $1,500 on that, it just sits there.
Yeah. So. And Wade Chadwick, funny you bring this up. That is the one exception for me. That and the Grail Diary. I have a Grail Diary and I have the Ravenwood Bar version of the headpiece because that's the one that. And what version do you have?
I have both. I have the Raven Bar and the Imam. So the production used piece that I bought before I sold it, I sent it to a good friend in Texas who does metal casting. He molded it, cast it, and he makes it's a Relic Hunter Relic Hunter. So it's Breton, so he makes the best replicas you can buy.
I think that's who I got mine from because it's metal. It's like, yep.
And the wire on the outside should be brazed on. That's how they made them. It's a twisted wire, and then they braze it on, and then he gold plates them and puts the correct crystal in the center. Yeah.
They're really, really nice. Like,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, that was a prop so in the prop community, for the longest time, people would never share information. They would, it was like hoarding. They would just they would get a piece, they would hold it, they would show it. They would never tell you measurements. They would never, there's the whole recasting scenario, but that's if you take someone else's work and you recast it. So when I bought that production used headpiece, no one had a true lineage piece. And I was like, I had only paid $500 or $600 for it. I'm like, I'm going to make sure everybody gets a chance to own this.
Sure.
So that's why I said I didn't even make hardly any money. I recouped probably the cost of what I paid for the idol. And I said, Brenton, you take it, you make them, you make as many as you want. You take all the profit. I don't care.
Right.
And and it was like, Adam Savage has one, I just know the pieces that are out there, and I wanted everyone else to have that, ability.
Yeah. And is that the Imam one?
Yeah. And then he took the Imam one, used that for the reference or for the size reference of everything, and made the and he got really good high res pictures of the screen used Raven bar headpiece, and then sculpted his version, and it's like 95% correct.
Yeah,
tiny little bits.
That's the one that I bought from him. It was so weird. His offerings were what made me realize what my brain was not telling me for years, because it was like I didn't know until I saw his offerings side by side that I realized, oh, that's why I've never gotten a headpiece, because my brain knew it and I didn't pick up on it, that the one I wanted was not the one most people offered. I wanted the Ravenwood one. I didn't know there were two versions. Every time I would feed him,
But did you know the one you? I mean, so like you bought the Raven bar one, but did you know that that's the style that you wanted? Just like subconsciously?
Yes, it was because when I finally saw the offerings side by side in the shop front, I went, oh. Now I know why I've never wanted this, because I've wanted that version because I didn't know there were two versions. Wow. And so it was like, and so I finally have the one I've always wanted, which, it's weird. It finally looks the way it does in my mind, because my brain never picked up on the fact that it looked totally different from one scene to the next.
Man, see, that's the thing that I've noticed about you in particular, that you realize things so much more when you were a kid than I did. I think I was like a complete aloof kid. I did not. I either I just didn't get it, or I was like not really thinking too deep into like movies that because I hear you talk about like things you saw in movies. I'm like, man, I didn't pick up on that. You know,
well, I didn't pick up on the medallion until I was 43 years old. So I missed out on that one. But yeah, sometimes like when I was a kid, I remember, for example, noticing like that Indiana Jones hat wasn't the same from movie to movie. Like I was like, okay, I can pick up on that. But some things went by me. It wasn't until I was probably a teenager that my gateway prop was, if you don't include Indiana Jones hat, which, we had store-bought ones and we thought that was fine. Like, but my gateway prop build was the Graflex lightsaber, the Empire Strikes Back Luke hilt. And that was a quest for a long time. That was when I started to realize there were differences and found objects and things like that. But that leads me into my next question. And first, let me just put up the super chat. Matt Movie 611, how are you, sir? He says, oddest prop I'd want to own is a pair of Christopher Reeve's glasses from Superman the movie.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a very obscure, probably, English pair of glasses that cost $700 now.
Yeah. Yeah, you find them in thrift stores in London somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask, Wade Chadwick says 2 versions. That means everyone will be digging in the wrong place. That is true. That is very true. I wanted to ask you about this guy has a question. Esva says, question for Brad. What is the hardest prop you were trying to replicate? For me, that must have been the T-800 skull.
Wow. Yeah, the T-800 would be difficult. Well, it's funny because so I didn't know anything about woodworking or Bondo or fiberglass or anything. So I bought the full front of the Han Solo and Carbonite is a full casting. And I had to, it sat in my backyard for about a year and a half, just wasting away in the weather because I just got a good deal on it. And the fiberglass was starting to deteriorate. So I was like, no, I have to build this. And just at that time, a guy in the RPF, Xenix, came out with the kit for the frame for the box, and he had got really good measurements. So that was like, it wasn't hard, but I had to step outside my comfort zone and go, okay, I need to learn, how to router an edge, how to even wood gluing and figuring out how I can place the fiberglass and Bondo it and create everything. That was it was like that. That step of, now I get it. It's not that hard. You just have to take your time and just do a little bit of research.
Yeah. That's the thing. You pick up new skills based on how passionately you want said prop or item. And then some you get halfway in and you go, I ain't as passionate about this one as I thought because I don't want to learn this skill.
Yeah. And that's the step for the people that do the R2 Builders Club. That's like a whole nother level. That's like if you you restore, you're restoring a car or something like that.
Yeah, and then how ambitious you get with an R2D2 build is like, do I want to do the 3-2-3, leg thing? If I'm going in that direction, then it's a whole nother level of expertise. Yeah. 757 Hustle asks, any good place for official prop info for newbies? Well, I'd be interested to hear what you say, Brad. The only way I did it was I kind of pecked around for a little while and then jumped with both feet into the RPF.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the RPF obviously it focuses more on building and the replica props, but it does some people like they'll talk about their the if you want officially licensed things. Mm-hmm. So other than that, and depending on what movie, you kind of have to be in the know, like look at EFX. I think in Master Replicas is gone. But Paragon Effects, which is the guy who made these goggles, Rilo, he owns that. So there's certain people that have licenses. The problem is because they don't make a lot of money, they don't stay in business very long.
Right.
Anovos had a hard time doing getting things built and made and shipped, and those guys were just passionate prop builders to begin with. So you can see that you can find a company that's making something now or going to make, they're going to say they're going to make it, and then they never make it, and then they go out of business, and it's really difficult. I mean, especially for the official. That's why a lot of people I think just make their own stuff.
It's such a revolving door. Like I now that I'm getting emails from a company called Denuvo, and they have Anovos's website, and I'm making the same stuff, and I'm like, oh, they must have changed names and reconsolidated or something. And now
so Denuvo is a subsidiary of Ruby's.
Oh,
so Ruby's, they got the license. Basically, the Novos got kicked out, unfortunately, from Disney. Disney gave the license to Denuvo, and Denuvo is now taking over the items that Novos never made. They're making them, honoring the original orders that were done, and coming up with new items.
Wow. Okay.
So it is a whole nother. It's so dramatic,
That everybody, this should be proof positive to you what Brad is saying right now, because I've told you guys for 10 years, not all of you, but the people out there, who you are, the ones who say, I don't like drama and I don't get involved in drama. Drama will find your rear end whether you want it to or not in fandom. It will find you. So just accept that it's part of the landscape. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if you like pop culture, you're gonna get drama. And with the official license, I had heard someone say this amazing quote one time: "Is the fans are doing the best work," and that means sometimes it's better to make it than just to buy it.
Yep. So. Some people, I remember you and I go way back to the era in our individual lifespans of icons, props, replicas. Yeah,
I have one.
Yeah, me too. I've still got my Luke New Hope saber, and I remember how excited I was when I saw that in Star Wars Insider. But at the same time, how many times, guys, between icons to master replicas to there was a company that came out right after that. Then there was EFX, and then there was Anovos, and now there's Denuvo. They are a revolving door, but the people who make them as fans, they don't really go away. Like a lot of them are still around, still, providing information and insights to all of us. So in the prop world, the fans do the best work. And that's what I wanted to talk about next, Brad, with you, was specifically the fan culture around replica props and costumes, because everybody in the community's really, 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 really passionate about them. And so they have those eyes where they see and obsess over the details to a degree that's helpful for the whole community. And eventually we get to suss out exactly the color of the stitching thread on a Marty McFly denim jacket, or something like that. But because we are in that fan group, we tend to encounter the kind of look of, you're speaking a foreign language to me, from the normie crowd, the muggle crowd.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that? Like, have you ever had somebody tell you, like, well, Alan Grant's shirt is just a denim shirt. And you're like, no. I mean, have you ever gotten through to them in conversations like that? Like where it's like, have you gotten them to see? Like,
it's impossible to, you can't make a blind man see. So like, the person that does that, it's the same person that comes in here and they look around and then they look at me like I'm a special needs child. Like, they're like, and then they go, so why? And I mean, to me, it's the same person. Thing is like I go into someone's house and they have NFL paraphernalia. Like,
right.
I mean, why? Why do you have comics that you're never gonna use? So so those people that well, I mean, I guess if you really like collecting and you want like a statue or a 1-to-1 scale Alan Grant, a denim shirt would look fine. Now, if you are a Jurassic Park fanatic, then you would want the actual feel of like that was in the movie. It might not be the exact same one that was in the movie, but it what it feels like. You know what it looks like in natural light.
Yep.
Adam Savage says this all the time. It's like it's that you want holding a lightsaber is different than just looking at it. So when people come over, I don't mind letting people hold things. Feel the weight of a DL-44. Feel that what it probably felt like on in Harrison Ford's hands. So yeah, I mean, and then there's people they just won't get it. I'm fortunate that my wife is very understanding.
Yeah. Well, clearly, I mean, she's like, I mean, and I have the same good luck. Stephen S asks, do you have any horror movie props?
Oh, I don't. I did. So I used to have a full Friday the 13th Part 7 Jason costume that I built. I made it, except for the mask. It was from Night Owl Productions years and years and years ago. Mask and everything. I also had a Michael Myers mask. I forget who the maker was, but it was a really good one. And I kind of like over time when my kids were little, I sold them just because I didn't want them freaking out, even though they don't care,
Right.
But no, I think horror films are fantastic. It's actually one of my favorite genres.
Let's see. I think I have a few more questions here. Adam Stevenson wants to tell you, hey, Brad, thanks again for the tip on the Club Obi-Wan Tuxedo Indie. Yeah. So
Adam, he and I have been conversing and talking about custom action figures, which, you own one of my
I do. It's
one of one.
Oh, dude, pride of place in the Empire Strikes Back shelf, as you've seen many photos of. He stands there. It's funny because I had somebody one time here, and I remember them saying, "What variant is that?" And I went, "That's the me variant."
Yeah, got to put it up to your face. And,
yeah. See, I look like generic brown-haired white guy number 4. Matt Movie 611 says, Rubies. I happen to know a thing or two about that company. If you're not aware, this is Matt is the guy who was the child model in the early 2000s for the Luke and Han costumes for Rubies for the kids.
No way.
So he's the kid on the front of those card stocks when you would buy the outfit in the bag, which is pretty funny.
That's both awesome and probably very embarrassing.
He also, funnily enough, he also did photography at that time, he told me, for an Indiana Jones costume that never was released. So he loves to jokingly say, I think I'm the only person alive that has officially played Luke, Han, and Indiana Jones. Let's see. I'm just making sure we don't have any more questions before I go into the next thing. Okay, so, here he says, Hephaestus says, do you make your own props? And if so, which one are you most proud of?
Obviously, yes, I do. And the one I'm most proud of, and it's in the background, where is it? Over here. Is it obscured? Not obscured. No. So it's the studio scale model from Explorers. It's the Thunder Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a kid, I love that film. Most people don't even remember it.
Right.
But again, it was one of those times where I just got this. I just started on the front of it is a TV screen or TV, front of a TV that they used in the movie. And I just had some styrene, some plastic, and I just made one. I was like, well, since I made it, maybe I can just make the rest of the chip, And I just found an acrylic, dome, cut it, and anyway, so it wouldn't, so I'm most proud about that because I've never seen another one made. And when I made it, just going off that little TV screen, I ended up accidentally making it the exact same size as the studio scale one that they used in the film.
Wow!
Just sheer happenstance, It was weird. So,
is it? Sorry, I was just gonna write off that. Speaking of complexity of props that don't get seen often, you reminded me just now. Why, in your experienced opinion, do you think that despite his popularity and despite the popularity of R2 units and protocol droids and everything like that, why are there not many Johnny Fyves out there?
I would have to imagine that it's just the machining, because I'm sure that was all custom made. So it would have to be probably just the cost of someone sitting down machining the tubes and everything. Yeah, I bet you his eyes and stuff like that are some obscure camera, But yeah, it's funny because people that like Mike Senna who made and Michael McMaster who make the Wally, they conquered the tread thing. So yeah, it'd be kind of cool to actually, if someone made it and they could actually articulate and stuff.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I've seen there was one expensive one years ago. There was a scaled down one from Short Circuit 2, and they did a run of those, but I never saw. I've heard people attempt it, but I've never seen like footage of a full size Johnny Fyfe.
Yeah, and that's a movie that really flies under the wire. Just you mentioning that, I actually had to think for a second. Johnny Fyfe. I was like, oh yeah, it's like.
Yeah, the one that chased the girl from War Games around. Rad Retro says, Brad, your Back to the Future newspaper is also amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, that was so a lot of people come in and they're like, well, so what do you do for work to buy all this stuff? And the newspapers. So I made the Back to the Future USA Today newspapers. Didn't know anything about Photoshop. Again, kind of stepping outside your box and trying to find images. So that I made one for myself, bought a large format printer, and I paid like $250 for that. And I was like, okay, well, I had that money to buy that. Got some newsprint, had a shop here cut it down to the correct size, and then I just printed one for myself. And then other people saw it, they're like, well, can I buy one? I'm like, oh yeah, all right. How about $10? They're like, yeah, sure. All right, $10. $10 cost me like 90 cents to make.
Right.
And I probably sold 2,000 of those things. And then that money, since I work, I didn't have to, put that my income into this stuff. So I would just buy, a Hansel and Carbonite front. So it's finding that niche sometimes that actually can spur on everything else.
Yeah. And it's cool too, because as a fan, you'll be getting the paper dimensions, right? Whereas like the USA Today official one, it was a novelty. It wasn't a prop replica. So you're getting it in its current newsprint size. You're getting it with its current, they made some compromises to it. Whereas yours will be legit to the movie itself. Like,
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, because you're exactly right. It's too small.
Yeah. It's, I remember seeing it, and then a friend of mine got me a copy of it that I didn't ask for, and he just gave it to me, and I wasn't like, I didn't like throw it back in his face like, oh, you heathen. I was grateful, that he had picked it up for me, but he's not like a prop movie guy, and so it was like, oh yeah, but I always said to myself, yeah, but newsprint back in the 80s was bigger, like it was big. I have another question here for you before we move over into, here it is. Esva says, question for Brad. Do you use 3D printing for prop making?
Sure. Yeah. So I have my brother actually bought me my 3D printer just because he was like, he's a big, tech nerd. So he's like, he's like, hey, you got to get into this. And like, I was reluctant because again, it's another skill set that you need to know.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know what I would use it for, but the reason I actually did want it was actually making replica toy parts. So I'm a big, I don't know why, but when I was a kid, the Remco utility belts, the cheap little $3 package Spider-Man, Batman, I had those and I just loved them. And every single time, the grappling hook, actually, I have one right here. The little grappling hook.
Yes.
Is broken or missing, so I modeled it. I learned, Fusion 360, modeled it, printed it, and they're. I mean, I have original ones; they're almost identical. So, with the movie props, I haven't used it yet, but I would. If I had a larger size, if I had a bigger, platform, I would be, printing Iron Man armor, all the stuff that people do. It's fantastic.
Now, have you gotten into the resin printing, or are you still in PLA?
So the one I have is the Elegoo Mars 2. So it's a really small print bed, but it's resin.
Okay, and wow.
Yeah.
So that means your stuff is the highest quality stuff you can print. That's not like metal or something. Yeah, that's great.
It's unbelievable the quality that comes out of it. You're like, it barely needs any touch-up sanding. It's fantastic.
The resin printing is crazy for not having any striations. It's just like, what kind of weird witchcraft is this?
It's just like it's coming out of liquid.
Yeah, it's. I half expect to walk up to a resin printer these days and be like, tea, Earl Grey, hot, and it just gives me tea.
Yeah, give it 20 years.
Yeah, Brian Dillingham, thank you for the Dillinghamism. And let's see, somebody just sent me a. Nope, wait, there it is.
Which I did get that reference to Star Trek. Even though I'm not a big Trek. I did.
No, it's just one of those famous lines from, this is sick, bro. Hey, Jesus. Jesse wants to ask you, by any chance, did you guys see the Discovery Channel Back to the Future special?
I believe I did. There's a couple, I'm not sure if I actually watched that one.
I don't know if I've seen that one. I'll have to look that up. And then let's see. All right, so we're gonna take a turn here. I promised everybody from the thumbnail that you're talking right now. When you're talking to Brad, everyone, you're talking to somebody who really knows his Jurassic Park props, franchise, everything. So first thing I wanted to do, Brad, was ask you, like, what was it about 1993's Jurassic Park? Because you and I were teenagers at that point. So what was it about that movie at that time that just made you go, like, this is it?
You were a teenager. I was 20.
Well, I mean, okay, you were right, but it was like we were still in that age group where it was like we like new big movies that come out, but we don't necessarily look back on them with prop building nostalgia. Right. So fair, okay.
Well, yeah. So I would say from a movie standpoint, it was fresh. It was obviously Steven Spielberg directing. It was beautiful. The idea, I guess, because I really was a big Westworld fan, Michael Crichton, it's virtually the same movie. Like once you get past the dinosaur thing, that it runs theme park runs amok. But so I liked that idea of just that the premise was really cool. Then when I was actually late to see it. I think I saw it maybe like 2 months after it came out. I wasn't on the big, because I saw the hype. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's so cool!" And I was like, "Well, it's dinosaurs. I mean, how cool, how neat could it be?" It's
right.
like I was never a dinosaur kid.
Right.
So, but then when you go see it, the dinosaurs are just they're the small part of the bigger story. So then I guess it's the adventure of it. The kids weren't annoying. The characters, everyone had their place. They're really well written, and I thought it was a really fun movie.
Yeah,
it had been a while since at that time I think you had like Dumb and Dumber coming out, which were great movies, but just wasn't adventure-y, and really brought me back to like a Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of thing.
It helped that the main protagonist for quite a bit of the film had a cool hat and everything like that too.
Yeah.
Which was, he had a great costume. To this day, Alan, I dressed up as Alan Grant to go to Lost World, even though I knew he wasn't in the movie. And I
mean, it's one of those. It's just like Indies. It's like it's so generic, but not. You know,
right.
it's like, you know, it's yeah.
Yeah, I remember for years people debated that thing on his belt. They all said it was a sunglasses case. I said no, people don't carry their sunglasses like that. And of course now we know it's a folding trowel. It's like a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Melinda would like to ask, question for Brad: where can I get a screen accurate Barbasol can?
Oh, gosh, you know, again, so this was produced by Rilo. He's the one who did the night vision goggles. He owns Paragon Effects. I believe they're working on coming out with one. Now, the thing is, even though this is 99% accurate, I'm going to try to get to the camera. Up here, the lip curls in, and on the screen use one, it just went straight up. So even this one, which is a vintage, you know, like I think this came out like the year after they changed the thing, and yes, it does.
Open. That's awesome. That's cool. That's awesome. That is great.
So, and this is all aluminum. You know, so but so you can find these, but even these go for, I don't know, $400 or $500.
Yep.
But I believe that they have the Paragon Effects has the license to Jurassic Park. They have the brochure. They're coming out with the cane. And I think that he's even trying to work on getting the night vision goggles done, because Chronicle Effects had it and then they didn't do anything with it. So
right. Jurassic Park was one of those that it was such a big deal in the 90s. Like, it was such a big thing, and it got into, you know, the early 2000s with Jurassic Park 3, and then due to some lackluster reviews of that film, they thought, well, when I say they thought, I mean the fan base at large thought, well, maybe that's the trilogy and that's it. And now we have a new trilogy, the Jurassic World trilogy. And I was just curious, given your history with Jurassic Park and given your devotion to the franchise in your own private life with the prop replicas and stuff, what do you think of the Jurassic World trilogy and where the franchise is right now? Do you think it's in a good place? Do you think I'm not trying to lead you. I'm genuinely
no. I mean, I'll be completely frank. It's crap. It's not. There's nothing that ties it to the original. Nothing. And even the sequels were just like, once they started doing the gymnastics thing, you know, it was just like the studio doesn't understand what this movie was. It made a ton of money. That's why it got sequels. It didn't need sequels. It could have had a sequel and been done really well if they just waited a little bit, maybe set it, you know, 10 or 15 years later. It just was not. It didn't need it. And again, I know you probably say, you know, have the same sentiment, is that just because it makes money, it doesn't mean that it needs more.
Right.
Know? So the new ones are absolute garbage. I had high hopes for Jurassic World when it came out, and it actually is better than the other two, which is not saying much. It's just, they tried the nostalgia bait, didn't really work. I mean, it worked financially, but it didn't work for me, you know.
Right.
And the other two were just, I tried to watch the last one just recently, and maybe like a week or two ago, got maybe 20 minutes into it, and I was like, this is just horrible. It's not even a Jurassic Park movie, you know.
Oh, really?
No, it's absolute garbage. It becomes this whole other storyline. It's weird.
Oh man.
So yeah.
The reason that I wanted to bring it up was just because, you know, we've seen in the fan space for the last few years, especially when Last Jedi came out, we've seen the din starting to really analyze a lot of these franchises, and by and large, even though Jurassic World hasn't, especially after Fallen Kingdom came out, even though it hasn't gotten the best critical reviews, it's largely escaped a lot of the harsh Eye of Sauron fan attack, you know, from saying, yeah, they'll say if they have to pay attention to it, you know, like, this isn't really the Jurassic Park I grew up with. But they haven't, you know, they haven't burned the village down like they have with Star Wars, Star Trek, and stuff. And I keep asking myself, is it because there's still a lot of latitude for Jurassic Park as a franchise to turn things around? Because since the premise is dinosaurs and the unexpected ability, or the dinosaurs and the overestimation to be able to control them is such a wide playing field in order to find a good story.
Right.
In other words, is Jurassic Park boxed in yet? Is it in an inescapable hole that it can't get out of? And
my opinion is, yeah, I don't think they would have to go back to the rebooting type thing to pull it out of where it's at. I don't think you could make, if they did it, or do the Halloween, thing where we just forgot all those 7 movies, and then we're just gonna go with a sequel now that takes place 20 years after the first one. It's interesting that I'm fortunate that I can compartmentalize things. I'm not a big Temple of Doom fan, so that movie to me, I can just go without. Most people, and this is where people just get pissed. They're like, "You ruined it. You ruined it for me." It's like, no, they didn't. You can choose.
Right.
You don't have to believe everything. The Star Wars sequels never happened to me. You know? So it sucks that we're not getting better stuff, but you just have to be able to say, okay, this is what it is. And funny enough, Lucas did that for me at an early age with when I didn't like Temple of Doom. I was like, okay, I don't have to like that one. I like Last Crusade.
It was so backward for me in that regard. You and I are both huge Indiana Jones fans, and I wasn't allowed to see Temple of Doom. I had a Showtime. I had off Showtime with no commercials, full video cassette of Raiders that I was able to watch anytime I wanted. And then Temple of Doom came out, and I was allowed to get the Wendy's posters or 7-Up posters. I was allowed to get the soundtrack. I was allowed to get the read-along cassette. I was allowed to get all the stuff, but I wasn't allowed to see the film. My parents went and saw it and said, nah, this is too much. So I saw Last Crusade summer of '89. I didn't see Temple of Doom until HBO ran it a bunch in 1994.
Well, which is interesting because it's a prequel. So you didn't have to see it to see Last Crusade.
Yeah. And I ended up kind of loving it. Like I still think Raiders is the best, but I ended up really appreciating it. And I wonder if it's because I didn't see it until so many years after the fact. I'm wonder.
Not sure. Well, I know that a lot of the parts in Temple of Doom were written for Raiders, but just they couldn't. It was too big of a movie. The minecart chase and stuff like that. I don't know if Short Round was written into Raiders, but so it's very Raiders-esque.
Yeah.
To me, it wasn't necessarily it's still a beautiful movie. It's fun. I guess it just didn't ring with me because of the whole Kalima.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's where I just kind of got lost in it,
Sure.
But Harrison Ford's in better shape. It's a fun movie.
Very esoteric plot device. Yeah. Now, so then this is the $1 million question, since we found ourselves here in this dead end alley for this particular topic. Since Indiana Jones 4, Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Terrible.
Okay, I was waiting. I was braced for, because you said, I really don't like Temple of Doom, and I'm like, he didn't say Crystal Skull. He might be one of those guys who likes Crystal Skull.
No. And I'm very hesitant with Indy 5.
Yeah.
The things that are coming out, the leak photos and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not a person who doesn't mind spoilers. I don't mind spoilers. You can tell me the plot of the movie, and I'll still enjoy it.
Sure.
I can't wait to see it, just because it'll be the first Indiana Jones movie I could take my son Harrison to.
Sure.
Which he's named after Harrison Ford.
Right.
So that's why I will see it in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for that, I probably would wait and just kind of see how it does. But I just want that experience. The same thing was why I took my son to go see what is it? Force Awakens.
Oh yeah.
So we got that experience, and after that, I was like, oh man, I can't do it.
Well, this is something that I don't know if you and I have discussed this directly yet. I've discussed it with a few people over on Indie Gear. You and I both prop guys. We're both Indiana Jones guys, and we both really, really, have taken a discerning eye to his outfit over our lifetimes. And what do you think? Let's forget the movie itself. I think the costume looks super sloppy.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, because his pants are way too big. They're baggy. You know, the army pinks, like it's a costume that was supposed to be thrown together for him. Like just in his mind, he just picked up these pieces and they worked for him.
Sure.
I've got to say, and I don't know if you find the same thing, but my wife would want me to wear that outfit every day if she had her choice.
Yeah.
And even going to Comic Cons, it's a panty dropper. I mean, not that I need it. It's the women love that costume. And it's just the silhouette. You don't have to be a good looking guy or anything. It's the silhouette of the women see it and they're like, that guy is an adventurer. It plays into their fantasy. It's amazing. Right. It's funny.
Yeah, it's especially when it's that Raiders version that was very, very deliberately and carefully crafted together. His outfit in Raiders is literally tighter than it ever is in any other film. It's tailored just for him. And then it slowly just starts to get, even starting with Temple of Doom, it slowly starts to get a little shabbier, and then a lot shabbier. And you just go, why'd they do that?
Have you seen the D23 photos from his new costume?
Oh, dude. It looks so hobo. Like,
it's painful.
Yeah.
It's painful. I mean, you've had leather jackets for a long time, and mine's a Wested. And I've probably had that for at least 15 years. It doesn't look any worse now than it did when I bought it. And yes, I'm not going on adventures. I'm not sliding down rocks and stuff like that. But how bad? I mean, it doesn't get that bad. It doesn't get down, worn down to the single layer of leather. It's just that, we have all our gripes about the strap being wrongly placed, and anyways.
Yeah, it's like when he hurt his arm and then he had to go away for a while. When he comes back, they've flipped the bag to his other hip to have it hang off his opposite shoulder. And I'm going, okay, I can kind of get there, but you didn't even bother to rethread the strap. So now the buckle's on his back.
Yeah.
So that
makes no sense.
The heck, man. It was very strange.
Yeah. And it's funny because since Temple of Doom is a prequel, he obviously ripped his shirt before, but ends up having the same shirt or similar shirt in Raiders. Now it doesn't have the safari stripes all the way down. It's just on the pocket.
Yep.
And you're like, I can buy that shirt, a similar shirt now. Like, why couldn't he have bought that in the 60s?
Yeah, it looks like he's wearing Dickies. Like he's wearing a Dickies shirt. It's like, huh? Yeah, it's Melinda comments, she says only if it's a good quality costume, right?
Right, yeah. No rubies.
And then Matt Movie says the Raiders costume is the indie costume.
Yeah.
Thanks to Michael's Patreon video, I'll be able to make my own. Well, good. I can't wait to see the result. It's weird how I feel like, and again, we're talking props and costumes, and how props and costumes can also, for people like you and I who are informed by those things, they can actually give us to me, I don't want to speak for you, but to me, they give me a window into what kind of mindset went into the whole production. So when I saw Force Awakens, for example, we're sitting in the theater and there's this innocuous shot in a scene where they're in that cantina, and John Boyega's character is standing there, and he gets up from the table. He's got that blaster gun thing that Harrison Ford gave him, and he's like, I'm gonna go look for Rey or whatever. And that gun is in close up at that point, like, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, that looks like a solid resin casting of a Nerf gun with some greeblies on it, spray painted bronzy silver.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah. Like,
and it takes you out. It takes you, I mean, maybe it doesn't take everybody else out, and they're like, you guys are just idiots. But you're right. I mean, it's like that attention to detail would never have happened in the 80s. They would, you would have a hero gun.
Yes. Yeah. There were no moving parts on that thing. It looked like a big chunk of resin. And I'm going, even if it's not, they didn't take the time and care to make sure it didn't look like that on screen. And that's kind of how the whole production felt at that point. When I see when I see the behind the scenes documentaries from Lord of the Rings, and I see Peter Jackson agonizing over every buckle on every costume and every dagger hanging from every belt and I'm like, okay, this guy has a vision. He knows exactly what he wants to see. Nothing gets by this guy. And then the production shows that. Like,
it translates down. It goes from top down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everybody goes, oh, well, he cares that much, then I need to care that much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what changes.
Yeah, like okay. Worst props you've ever seen in a movie that you can think of off the top of your head.
Oh crap.
You can just grab one.
The rifle from The Force Awakens. No. Worst props. Oh crap. The last Starfighter gun. Starfighter blaster.
Yep.
Horrible design.
Mm-hmm.
Ugliest thing. Just people Google it. Just do last Starfighter blaster. That's right off the bat the one I think of most. I'll have to think about it. Yeah, because because it's pretty rare. I mean, they're putting millions of dollars into production. Usually, you see some really cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, there are people that half-ass things, but it's usually a bad production, anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any? Scuba Pete has a super chat here. He says, "Not a pair of panties, but it is a super chat instead. So I'm sure enjoying the conversation." Well, thank you. I'm enjoying.
That
$4.99. Let's see. KBA says, "Finn, I'm gonna go pretend I actually have a purpose in this franchise."
Most underused character ever.
I agree. Totally agree. Now, movies. Are there any movies that you're looking forward to that aren't out yet?
Man, honestly, I right now I'm big into just watching good horror movies. I think it's the last untouched genre that hasn't been tainted too much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have a smear of just crappy movies, but when a really good one comes out, it stands above all else. I don't really look into what's coming out. It'll I don't know, just the landscape has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know this. It's just like going to the theater and giving my money to certain things. I can't. And it's not a political, it's not a social thing. It's
right.
More just like, I don't think it's going to capture my attention.
Right.
And if I'm surprised later on, I'm surprised. I don't have the FOMO either. Of I don't need to go out and see everything just so I can bitch about it online.
Yeah.
A lot of people think I do, but I don't know. There's nothing I can off the top of my head. I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait for that to come out.
I feel exactly what you're talking about, because I'll get excited very rarely for a film when I hear about it, but I won't get excited enough that I want to race out to the theater and see it. And then months will go by. So yesterday, my buddy Scott alerted me. He said, it's Prime Deal Day. If you have Prime, he always reminds me. And he always tells me, hey, because I'm a physical media collector. So he's always like, their 4Ks are on sale. They've got these big, deep discounts. So I went in there and I looked around, and one of the ones that was on sale was The Northman. Well, I hadn't seen it, and that was one of the few trailers that came out that I actually was like, oh, I'd watch that. Okay. And I got even more interested in it about a month or two later when I heard people saying how it wasn't good, and I'm like, oh, that means I'm probably going to really like it. So I saw that it was on deep discount, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll pick that up. But it's been 6 months, 8 months since that movie came out, and I didn't miss it while I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't,
Well, by the way, is it good?
I haven't seen it yet. It's still arriving. When it does, I'll let you know.
Yeah, because it's funny. My brother has a Plex account, and he shares it with me, and it's on his Plex. I've looked at it. I'm like, some movies I need to be in a mood for. I've never seen $1 Million Baby. My wife was like, you have to see it. I'm like, I need to be in that mood to see that movie.
That's like a once every decade and a half mood for that movie.
I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, it's like.
But I did think of a movie that I'm really looking forward to, and I think it comes out next month. It's I don't know the name of it. It's the Santa Claus movie that it's basically based off the movie, that fake movie that they did in Scrooged, where Santa comes to rescue a family. But it looks fantastic, and it's, I don't know the actor's name, but it's the actor from Stranger Things, the cop, you know, with the mustache. Anyways, if you haven't seen the trailer, it looks funny and stupid and fun and unique, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I end I don't know if you're like me, but I end up lately just like, I'll be honest, we don't have all the streaming services. We keep it down to like 3, but it's like I'll be on one of them and I'll just look around, and if Belinda's like busy one night, you know, with like a job thing or something, you know, her job sometimes has her at an event or something like that, and I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, oh, so the other, like a month ago, I'm sitting there and I go, oh yeah, I'd heard about this movie, Last Something in Soho, or Last Dance in Soho, or whatever. I'll click that. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was like a period drama. Turns out to be this horrendous murder horror thing that looks like an acid trip. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm on this ride. Might as well ride it out. It was free, you know, and I get to the end and, you know, I'm like, that's how I run across movies now. I trip over them like I'm stepping on a Lego, you know, like, you know,
I am very similar to that, because I don't see a lot of trailers. I'm not like searching for. So if something comes across my, you know, comes in front of my face, I'm like, oh well, I'll give it a go. So I just watched Smile. It's a horror movie. Terrible movie, absolutely terrible. But it's getting people are like, oh my god, it's a great. I'm just like, I don't. Maybe I'm the one. I just don't. It doesn't ring true to me at all.
Right.
You know? So
is it that horror movies these days, especially the streaming ones that get all the hype, they all hang on one gimmick, whether it's like you can't make a sound, or you can't look anywhere, like you got to be blindfolded, or don't look at the smile, like and
I get suckered in every time. I'm like, well, thank God I didn't pay for it. You know, it's like but it's kind of frustrating, because I'm like, well, you know, it should be easy enough to make a movie.
See, I think we should go in on a concept since these concepts are so easy to sell, Brad.
Right.
We should just be. I just
came
up.
You have to remove your brain, though. I mean, that's the first. Yeah.
Well, I just came up with this just now, so that maybe I'm depraved. Maybe, I don't know. Judge me for what it will. But we should, like, you know, pitch the idea of just a new horror film for the streaming thing called Fart. And it's just like, you know, and then the tagline is, if you smelt it, he dealt it. And then it's just like, you know, like you can, that's what they've come to with a lot of these films.
Well, I mean, look at Sharknado. I mean, it was done as a jest, and it actually made a ton of money.
Right.
You know, so it is something like that. It would be, you know, that's like The Stuff back in the 80s. But most of those things were done because the person just wanted to make a little bit of money, and it was a stupid, you know, premise, and it became cool. If you do it so, like, it would be almost meta to make it as a joke, but then it actually makes money, you know, because it's a joke.
Right.
So
I
mean, I'm still waiting for a prequel to American Werewolf in London. That's where you know, it doesn't even have anything to do with the characters of the first one. It just takes place of the lore of that werewolf. So if anybody ever sees this, make it, please. I have no idea. But
given how, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no.
Okay. Given how authentic you are, like myself, when it comes to just talking about films, like, you don't sugarcoat things, you keep it very real, but you also live out near the industry, and you have for quite a long time. Is that something where you can be as real among people who are out there, you know, working in proximity to all this, or do you have to temper your comments sometimes?
You have to temper it. I mean, you have to. I mean, I have friends, you know, a really good friend who's a high exec she's at Fox now. And then she went to Fox. And if she's working on a movie that I don't like, I was like, hey, that was a neat movie, you know. And it's not necessarily that I have to do that with them,
right?
But it's that I also don't want to, like, that's, if someone said, because I'm in real estate, if I sold a house and someone came across and goes, well, that was a terrible deal. Why'd you do that? Why'd you even, like, broker that deal? You'd be like, well, go fuck yourself.
Right,
How about
right.
that? So it's like, so you don't want to be, jerk about it. But if they ask my true opinion about it, or did I see it, I'd be like, no, I didn't see it, or
sure,
it doesn't appeal to me. But for the most part, yeah, you have. I mean, you just do because you don't want to make waves. You don't want to piss somebody
right,
off. It's
right.
not necessarily that you need to cower in your own opinion, but you just you just choose not to go that route.
Yeah. It was that way when I was out there and I was working as a administrative / development assistant, and I was reading a lot of scripts and writing a lot of coverage and stuff like that for the people that I was working for. They had a deal with Dimension Films at the time, and they were trying to get movies made, and they were doing the movie The Ring with Naomi Watts. Like they were just they were remaking successful Asian horror films. Yeah. They did The Grudge and Dark Water and the Eye and all that stuff. And I was out there for just a little while, and I just remember at one point there was one of the guys who, before they had consolidated and put this office together, one of the two producers that was in on this, he had just been a part of Death to Smoochie.
Oh yeah, Kevin Smith.
Yeah, the one with Edward Norton as the sort of.
Oh yeah. He was the
right.
Or something like that. Anyways,
yeah, and we were all expected. When I say we were all, it was an office of 4 people, so 3 of us were expected to go watch this film, and then on Monday morning we were supposed to, make sure that we had something nice to say about it. And fortunately, I did find a lot of the offbeat humor very funny in the film. So I came back able to say stuff that was genuine, right? And positive. But there was that interim between when we were told there's kind of an expectation that we go see this. You don't want to come back on Monday having not seen it, because your boss is going to want to know. So there was this fear where it was like the line in Fanboys where it's like, what if this sucks? Like, what if this movie sucks? And sure, the film didn't do very well commercially, but at least I was able to say, yeah, it had some really actually good stuff in it that was pretty funny and subversive. But there's that whole tread lightly kind of thing. It's like a lot of egos going on in this business, and they get set off by things. And
and it's funny. I mean, where I live is about 10 miles south of not downtown LA, but like, the west side, and so I don't have to put myself in that scenario a lot.
Right.
And I would choose not to. I'm almost 50, and it's like, why do I need to go up and be with these people, but it's that whole culture that people think it is that, kissing ass, whatever they need to do to get ahead. And it was not, that was never for me. I have a lot of friends in it, but no.
Yeah. I'll keep a wide berth, thanks.
No, you made the right decision of not sticking around, because it's a what they say from Jerry Maguire, it's a up at dawn, pride swallowing siege.
Yeah, I need a copy of that Maguire manifesto just to have
that. That'd be kind of a cool thing to do. Actually, it would be hard.
And I wonder if it was fully written, or if it was they only wrote the lines he needed to say and then the pages you saw. But if it was fully written,
it would be cool.
Yeah. Somebody has a question for you. Camp for King one says, "What do you think of Jurassic Park toys?"
So I never collected the ones, or I was past that time, when the movie came out. So I didn't really even see. I mean, I see them in the Toys R Us and stuff. The new ones, I think they look fantastic. And honestly, every time I go to Target with my kids, I always have to go to the toy aisle, just check it out. And every single time, the one that gets me that looks cool is the Explorer.
Yep.
It comes with the little Timmy figure. It's got the night vision goggles. I mean, they're done so well. And like the playability from that stuff,
Yep.
Like kids would, I mean, obviously it's geared towards us, but I'm sure some kids that are still into dinosaurs would love to have that and see the movie and they could play it. You know, they're made really, really well.
Yeah.
I don't buy them, but that's just because I don't buy modern toys. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm considering before they go out of the stores. I'm considering grabbing one more Explorer set just to have a second Explorer.
Yeah.
And then paying stupid money to get that Gennaro exclusive so that I can finally have the whole complement from that scene.
Which one? Where did he come out through?
He came out through Comic-Con. And he's from the same scale line from Mattel.
Yeah, because they did the Nedry and the Hawaiian shirt from Comic-Con as well.
Yep. And fortunately for me, they did the Nedry again, but in the raincoat with the Jeep. So I was like, okay, I'm cool with that Nedry. That's fine. I don't need the other one. Hammond came back out in the set with the banner and another Ellie. I was like, okay, great. I don't need the little Raptor hatchling stand. He's got his stick, and that's great. That's all I need. But yeah, the second Explorer and Gennaro is all that I would need to really be, for me, full up. Like, I'm good at this point. Yeah.
Would you do like just have them there, or would you actually want the diorama, the T-Rex?
I wouldn't be opposed to building the electric fence, and having it collapsed and all that stuff. I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. And then, of course, way off in the distance, I would have Ellie and Muldoon in a Jeep, because they're off doing something else. Right. So I'd have them too. That first movie is my ultimate Jurassic Park anything. Everything else, like I was at Target the other day and they had Julianne Moore's character with the utility vehicle from Lost World. And I was like, it's a nice toy set.
Right.
And I loved that action scene. I thought it was the best scene in the movie where the glass is cracking and she's like, but it's kind of like we were talking about where we go, but what would I do with that Blade Runner blaster once I have it? Like, it doesn't resonate with me. Right. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, and speaking just so I do get Jurassic Park, I do have a screen used Mr. DNA cell.
Oh, wow. Dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it actually has the drawing, so it's the cell and then the drawing behind it. Again, one of those that I picked up 20 years ago on eBay for like $150.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder who offloaded all the cells from that run. Like, Troy says, thank you for the super chat. He says, no need to read, just supporting and showing some gratitude. Well, Troy, thanks for being here. All right, let's see. So you're still working on projects, I'm sure, in the background. What is the latest prop that you're working on right now? There's got to be one.
There isn't.
What?
Well, I mean, so it's got to be the lights and the sound for the proton pack is my next thing. I mean, again, it's always a cost to want to do it, need to do it, time to do it kind of thing. I mean, I just put the side panels on my Han Solo and Carbonite after like 8 years or 6 years. So there's things that I'm always like thinking of, like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to make. I gotta say, if I could get into anything right now and like money was no object, it would either be converting a DeLorean, or building an R2.
Right.
I really do want to. I mean, all my buddies here are here with the R2 builders. I could step into that realm.
Right.
It again, it's once you go there, it's a 3 to 5 year plan, and it's thousands of dollars.
Yep.
So it's No, I'm not, honestly, I look around and I'm like, I do, I hang out and here. This is my office, and so I always kind of look around like, what do I want? What do I need? It's like, it always kind of. I also would like to build a studio scale starfighter.
Oh yeah.
They never made one for the film, but I would like a really good size starfighter.
It's such a wasted opportunity for a toy line too,
dude.
Like,
I mean, didn't you have did you have someone making one, or maybe it was Gary Weaver has someone who's making one?
Joe Dickerson surprised me. I had gotten the freeze chamber designed with him, the scaled up freeze chamber, and then he came over one day and he had this massive box, and inside it was this 3 3/4 scale correct Gunstar that he had put together. Now it is a work in progress, but just seeing it sitting there on a desk, it's like, good Lord, you know, like the thing is massive. So I have that in the workshop over there where I'm trying to kind of like work it through its foibles since it's a prototype and kind of get it finished up and looking nice. But I haven't had time yet. I'm going to follow up on that video at some point, but I just haven't had time.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I flip-flop between props and action figures and toys. Like sometimes my passion will be solely toys and I can't get out of that for 6-7 months. Then I'll get into a prop and I'm invested in that for a period of time. I won't even be on eBay looking at toys or anything because unfortunately LA does not have good, car boot sales or, garage sales or anything like that. It's just, it's nothing. So it's eBay or nothing. But,
oh, really? So everything's picked over is what you mean?
I mean, you can't go anywhere. I mean, even if you find a good, secondhand toy store or consignment, the prices are astronomical. No one has good garage sales. It's just like the turnover of living here in LA is so much that you don't have old people really selling their homes or having to, vacate their homes and having, stashes of toys that I see like in Georgia. And, I see these people who live around, like, I'm like, man, I would love to have that opportunity.
It gets a little wacky sometimes when you see some of the local Facebook marketplaces with some of the stuff people find, and you go, here I am chipping away at YouTube ad revenue, and these people are finding, like the rarest blue snaggletooths and stuff just, at some grandma's house, and it's just, oh my God. Speaking of that, prop regrets. Have you ever bought or invested yourself in a prop and then you go, why did I do that? And then which one?
Well, let's see. I think there's a couple different. I can say that I know that if I have ever bought something and I was just like, why did I buy this? I've turned around and sold it for what I got from it. So I've been very fortunate to not get stuck with something that I'm like, I paid $300 for this, and now what am I going to do with it? And then no one wants it.
Right.
So I've been very fortunate, but I mean, I think for just people's, education, the other side of that is when people are making something and you put a deposit down and then 6 months goes by or a year goes by and there's no communication, then they come up with, I've had a lot of life things. That's where I think the bigger issue happens with prop collecting is that people, they trust someone. There's a great, thread, someone's making something and then it just goes away and you're out your deposit of $150, $200, and the person's taken, 50 people's money.
Yeah.
I've just been very fortunate that I've never done that. But also you can see this kind of telltale signs when someone puts up something for sale. And they're like, I'm going to make 100 of these. And you're looking, well, each one of those is going to take you a week. So, you're going to run into issues eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, I was on the, years ago, I was on the run, the very limited 47 run for Badger's, Nathan Fillion Firefly pistol.
Okay.
And that was one where it was legitimately taking him a long time because everything was cast in metal and everything like that. But he was legit. Like, he eventually tried to work officially with QMX for a while, and then he literally was like, I can't work for these people. But he did that. The pistol was before QMX, and he did an amazing job. But it took about a year to wait. But he kept giving people updates. Right. On the flip side of that, on the flip side of that was when I was simultaneously around the same time, I was trying to get the blaster from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, not the main one that they carry in their holsters, but the one you saw in a lot of the famous production stills, which happens to be what I've dubbed the pirate blaster. It's the one with the larger magazine bottom to it. It looks more chunky.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And there was this it wasn't off the RPF, but it was somebody I found, you know, through searching and stuff. They offered that pistol and they said, you know, we cast it properly and it's got the right clear tip and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I ordered that one from these people, and it took 8-9 months. I wasn't sure what was going on, and I'm thinking, what the heck? Finally shows up, and it was put into a plastic bag while the paint had still been slightly wet.
Was it all wrinkled?
So yeah, so when you pulled the plastic bag off of it, it peeled away from the paint, leaving these striations, and then the tip, which is supposed to be this clear plastic or plexiglass tip, was just a big piece of resin spray painted silver. And I was like, this is a joke. And they were like, we got to send it back, and we're real sorry, we made a bunch of mistakes. And I'm like, yeah, you sold a false bill of goods is what you did. Like, so I've been in the ringer on that too. And it's like with toys, you just got to know your sellers and you got to be careful. Yeah. And you got to be sure that you know who you're dealing with beforehand. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
And it's all about communication. Because I understand, like, you know, if you're working on a big project, as long as there's updates and the person's just not shining people on by saying, oh yeah, I can't do this, you know, my mother's sick or whatever. The excuses are always fun to watch on some of these threads on the RPF. Exactly. I mean, I think some people have, you know, come down and been stricken with, you know, malaria, and it's crazy. But as long as there's communication, because that's all you want, you know, it's like, you know, that your money's there, and if they're doing the work and they have updates. These night vision goggles, Rilo, I'm the one that spurred him on to make them. He took the deposits, and it took like 2 years to make. But he was like, here's this update, here's this update. I mean, I'm busy here, so if you want your money back, I'll refund the money, but it's going to take me some time. And we're like, oh, okay, that's fine. All good, we'll wait. And something like this, you just wait for it if you want it bad enough.
Right. He didn't ghost you. He kept you in the loop, and he had a good reputation. So
yeah, it's almost like you're being an adult. You know, it's like it astounds me. It astounds me.
It's crazy to see some of the projects that people try and start, and then you get a smell for it now, where you go, I'm gonna wait and see how that shakes out on that one. Like, I don't know, you know.
I don't post, if I build something, I don't post the build until I'm done with it. I'll take the progress photos, I'll do everything, and then I'll put it all out. Because first off, the frustration for other people is like, you know, it's like when you see something cool being built, you want that satisfaction. You want to binge it. You want to like get that next photo, next thing, see the progression. Some of these things can take a year, and it's like that would be frustrating for people, like, to have to wait. Because I've been on that end. You see someone doing the really cool build, and you're like, oh, that's awesome, and then nothing. For 9 months. You know?
And it's weird too, because like I recently I'm trying to slowly prep this long prep process for this Robin Hood documentary I want to do, and so I had to go find somebody who could recreate Errol Flynn's famous hat. Like, I wanted it recreated exactly. I didn't want some chintzy Etsy Robin Hood hat. I wanted the real deal. So I started working with this hatter that was recommended to me. They're very good, and they did a great job, but they got delayed and weren't giving me updates for a long time. Now, in the background, I was also trying to get Errol Flynn's sword from Robin Hood, which was a Hollywood invention. It wasn't authentic or anything. Well, just so happened that Albion Swords had offered it like 10 years ago, and nobody bid. So, as a functional blade, right? So the funny part is Albion was going to take longer because their wait list is longer, because they're really, really good at making swords. So they were going to be like a year to 18 months lead time. I've never bothered to follow up with them, and they've delivered it as of like 3 weeks ago. Meanwhile, the haberdasher, the hatter, they were only supposed to take 3 months, 5 months, whatever it was. And I was hounding them every step of the way because their communication was so bad. And that's what I think is important to know when you're in the props game, everybody listening, is that if you got somebody like the guy that made your goggles or Albion Swords working on something, you can kind of relax and release a little bit on a long lead time. As long as you're patient they have a good reputation. But with some people, doesn't matter how short they claim the window is going to be, if they're unproven, then you better ride them.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And expect disappointment.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
It's just bake it into, like, you know, that it's not going to be exactly what you want, and, you know, and hopefully it is, but, you know, yeah. And again, it comes down to, I'm surprised that people go through life the way that they do, and that they don't just get hit by a car of how, you know, how stupid they are. You know?
Yeah. I've collected $27,000 in upfront money for this prop that I'm doing from Space 1999. I don't have my crap together enough to actually make it. 8 months later, I've already spent the money, and everybody's wondering where I live.
Yeah, I'm getting kicked out of my apartment. And,
yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's the same thing with, I do every so often, very rarely, take a commission for a custom action figure or a prop, like that. And I will never take money up front. Never.
Right.
I don't want the pressure of me having to do it under a certain time.
Yep.
You know, I'll do it at my pace. If you want it when I'm done, great. If you don't, great. You know, that's how it should be done, I think.
Oh, every time. Yeah.
It's almost like a HasLab. Like, don't take money off the lines, and just, if you want it, you want it. You kind of know. Yeah. So,
isn't it amazing how that used to work? Your venture, your risk. Gosh. Esva says, question for Brad. Some props can be easy to make with simple materials and look really great. The Blade Runner origami horse, for example. What was the most simple prop you made that looked real?
The bat. I can grab it. You know, this is.
Oh man.
This is just PVC pipe. And screws, and, you know, so this probably cost I don't know, $4. You know? And then you get, you know, pinstriping from the automotive shop. But it looks, and so I actually had the opportunity to put this next to a real it was the foam stunt design, but mine was almost mine was like an inch too short. And the PVC, just because of what I needed, was a little bit too small of a diameter.
Right.
But everything else, my sections were almost spot on. So it came out, you know, I always liked this because it's actually the first prop I ever built. But once I put it next to the first one, I was like, oh wow, I could remake it and have it spot on. But this means more to me than you know, than having the screen accurate dimensions and stuff.
I'll tell you the final story, and then I'll give you the final word. But because we're at time, but PVC is such a lifesaver, because I'll never forget, Melinda and I were planning for a Dragon Con. We had just been dating about a year, and I said, we got to do, you know, Dragon Con. She had done Dragon Con before I'd known her, so fortunately that wasn't like a leap for her. But she decided that she wanted to do Tomb Raider. She wanted to do Lara Croft. And I said, okay, we're going to do classic Lara with the blue top and the shorts.
And you hated that, right? You hated
I totally hated it. Oh, it's horrible, right? But I told her, I said, we should really do it up better than the way a lot of people do it. In other words, like you and I think, which is, let's get every detail in there. In other words, we're corner cut nothing. And so I was like, that means you got to have a shotgun. That means you've got to have your pistols. That means you've got to have your assault rifle. That means you've got to have end game Lara. And I said, and I was on top of that, you got to have the grappling hook hanging off your belt. And she goes, okay. So we went to Home Depot, like you did for the bat.
Yep.
And I remember sitting there and I'm like, okay, we're going to need a piece of PVC about 14 inches long. We're going to need a cap piece for it. We're going to need 3, maybe 4 shelf brackets that slot in, slotted shelf brackets. And I'll never forget Melinda looking at me as I'm digging through the thing, grabbing 4 shelf brackets. And she goes, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Like, she's like, I don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, trust me. And then we got home and I drilled the holes and did the cap thing. And I put the thing in and I drilled them in and slotted the brackets. And then I spray painted the whole thing black, and they flared out and it looked like a grappling hook handle off of her butt, you know. And then she got mad at me the rest of the weekend because it kept slamming her in the leg so much. Yeah.
Well, which is funny. So you brought up two things. First off, when you have that vision and you know what you want and you know how to do it, and that's one thing. It's what's weird. I think maybe you're the same way. Is I can walk through Home Depot and just things will stick in my brain of a texture, of a size or a shape or something like that. So when it's like it's not a specific thing that I'll ever make, but then eventually my kids will be like, "Hey, Dad, I need such and such this made, or can we make this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know exactly. We can they have mesh and they have this, and we'll put that together." So it's just like it just sticks in your head. The other thing is like when you go to Home Depot and you're doing that, and you get that one guy that comes up and he goes, "So what are you building?" And you're like, "I'm making a grappling hook."
Yep.
And they're like, okay. You turn around and walk away.
So it's where you do the Nick Offerman thing where you're like, I know more than you. Oh man. Well, we are at the 90-minute mark, sir, and I just always want to give my guests the last word, or anything that we haven't brought up that you'd like to talk about, or that I didn't bring up, or that I boneheadedly ran right by, or
no. I mean, I hope everyone got a good taste of like just what I do and what this conversation was about. I mean, we didn't go in too depth with any particular thing, but I think it's a great broad spectrum of things to kind of look at. I would say the only thing I would end on is I am living proof that you can disagree with Michael on many different things and still be friends with him. It's amazing. It's amazing how it works, because Michael and I have had our blows, and eventually, if one of us that when we're hot-headed can come back and just say, "Man, yeah, I'm sorry," we can move past it, and you can actually go, "Oh, yeah, all right."
It's also it's a quality of character about the so I'm referring to you. So like, I never for a moment in any of the time that we had a disagreement, I never for a moment thought that you were like a dyed-in-the-wool douchebag. Like I was always like, this
you're wrong.
Yeah, this is just a disagreement. This one's gotten a little heated, but there's never a reason to cut Brad off. You know what I mean? Like there's never that moment where it's like, I don't want Brad in my life. Like, it's not like that. There are people, you and I both know, there are people where you get the read on them and you go, I don't think I want to deal with this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I don't know. Never. So yeah, like I don't build friendships on whether or not we agree about a Star Wars movie, or whether or not we agree about what's our favorite tree.
Right.
Like it's not like that with me.
Which is birch. But so but
those are good canoes.
The people that do cut people off are usually the people that know they're wrong but can't apologize.
Right.
And they're like, well, F him. I'm right, and I'm not going to let him know that I'm wrong.
Right. And or the people that are like, they're already coming at you squirrely, and you go, oh, here we go. I don't have enough of my Thursday to deal with this. And then, and then at that point, it's like, I didn't engage. I threw up a wall. I just knew there was a smell. But
at that point, you just grab your Smith & Wesson, you whip it out, and you shoot them from afar when they're whipping their sword around.
That's right. That's what they're doing. Perfect analogy. They're whipping that sword around, trying to show off. And it's just like, I don't have time for this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody, Brad is not only an amazing guy, he's a very talented guy. He's very candid. That's why I love him to death. He has an amazing skill set. He needs to be doing more videos, but I'm going to promote him regardless, because I want you to be inspired to do more video work on your channel. And even still, even if Brad never makes another video, he's an amazing resource and a great friend. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time today to do this, Brad.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for inviting me on. I really
everybody, his YouTube channel is in the description below. And if you're interested in props and prop replicas and costumes, check out the RPF. I'm sure that you'll find Brad on there, and I'm on there somewhere with an account that I rarely use these days, but I am officially there under No Hand Luke, which I'm pretty proud of that name. But if you find us there, say hello, and we'll see you on the RPF. Brad, thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, and Brad, stick around, and I'll see you in the green room.
Okay.
See you, everyone.